Hello and welcome to today's podcast. Thank you very much for being here. I very much appreciate it as always. Hey, if you are listening to this and you want to see me, then you can go to YouTube and watch my first podcast with video. Yeah, I had to make the switch. Now, just so y'all know, I have to look decent. Like sometimes I record these on a day when I don't even have makeup on. So this is asking a lot, but I'm going to do it just for you. All right, today, let's get into it. I am going to be talking about why I don't hate bankers and why everybody thinks that I do. So if you know a banker that is scared of me, please share this podcast with them. I would very much appreciate it. Very much. Because here's the deal. I titled the book Farming Without the Bank. I did not title the book Farmers Hate Bankers. I didn't title it that way. I didn't even title it I Hate Bankers. I titled it Farming Without the Bank. Hey, let's make that a goal, right? To farm without the bank. It was not something that was intended to say, oh, I hate every banker. That's not the case. Nor is it the case that I am sitting here saying, oh, join my bandwagon of hated bankers. No. So if you all know, and you've all heard my podcasts before, typically, I stick up for the bank. Typically, I am the one saying, hey, Mr. Farmer, you should not be blaming the bank because you are in the situation that you're in. No, the situation you're in is most likely because of the fact that you have not kept your books. You were given advice from an accountant to say, oh, go buy that because you need to avoid taxes. And then the banker said, yes, sure, I'll lend you the money because commodity prices are high and everything is fantastic. So I'll lend you the money today. And then I'll just ride your butt in, 2 or 3 years from now when commodity prices aren't high and you still owe money on said piece of equipment. Now, at the end of the day, in that scenario, the accountant gave you terrible advice. The banker allowed you to borrow money. But who wrote the check? You, Mr. Farmer and Rancher, you wrote the check. You, Mr. Business Owner, you wrote the check. Is farming and ranching different than any other business in the way of keeping books? No. As a business owner, you need to keep books. You need to pay attention to what is going on with your finances. If you aren't keeping your books, you don't know if you can make that payment when there's a downturn. Now, here is where I get hard on somebody, and it is the accountant. Because at the end of the day, it's still your responsibility, Mr. Farmer or Rancher, because you own that business. Just like it is my responsibility to make sure that I understand my books and I am not overspending. Same responsibility. However, I get horrible advice from my own accountant, as do many other people. Now, I have a friend who has a business, and I texted her the other day and said, hey, are you an S Corp? Because I know she's been doing well this year. And she said, no, our accountant told us not to be an S Corp because we probably won't make that much money this year. Since when is it your accountant's responsibility to tell you how much money you're going to make and project your income? Maybe instead of just saying, oh, you won't make that big leap because most people don't, maybe they should ask some questions. Very much like I had a really good 2020. COVID was super helpful to me because nobody could go anywhere. So my accountant says, oh, you probably won't make that much money next year. Why wouldn't I? Why would I be one and done? Why wouldn't I continue to grow my business? That's just stupid advice, in my opinion. I like my accountant, but stupid advice, stupid comments, right? So instead of looking forward, instead of talking about how can we mitigate taxes, what are some strategies we can use, what are some of the advantages of some of the tax codes, instead of going over that, you probably won't make that much money next year. No, you probably won't make that much money this year. We don't have to file an S-Corp designation. Just like, hey, Mr. Farmer and Rancher, why don't you go buy something to avoid taxes? But we're not going to look out 3 or 4 years down the road. If commodity prices fall, can you still make that payment? We're not going to look at worst case scenario. And then you don't look at worst case scenario, which then leads to a poor decision. And the banker doesn't look at worst case scenario because the banker's there to make money. So he's not looking at worst case scenario. That's up to you. That's your responsibility. And so I think it's very funny when bankers think they're so scared of me. I have been asked to speak in the past. And there was one event in particular where I was given a keynote. I was able to do the keynote, and then I was asked to do 2 breakout sessions. Shortly before the conference, they said to me, Mary Jo, we can't have you do 2 breakout sessions because the bank is sponsoring this and they are concerned about it. Really? Why is the bank so concerned about little old me? There's one of me. Yes, I have a book. Yes, over 10,000 people have read that book. But you are really that concerned about little old me that you're going to stop your farmers from getting good education, figuring out how to get away from the banking system, not necessarily the bank? Mr. Banker, I am not going to shut down the Federal Reserve and shut your business down. I hope to, but it's not going to happen in my lifetime. Wouldn't that be awesome if it did? But there's one of me and there's one of you on every street corner. And you're concerned about me because of the title of my book? Farmers and ranchers get offended by my book when they read the title of the book, Farming Without the Bank, and then there's comment after comment after comment about how bankers aren't bad, lending's not bad, not all loans are bad. Did I say that? Did the title of the book say that? No, it did not. The title of the book said, hey, basically you should farm without the bank so you have liquidity, control, and some guarantees. That's what that book is about. That book is not about bashing bankers. Bankers are good people. They are our friends, our families, our neighbors. They're good people doing what a board allows them to do. I haven't had a call in probably a year or so from a banker, but when commodity prices were really bad 2-3 years ago, it was unbelievable how many bankers I met with. Because they were tired of telling their neighbors no. They were tired of telling their friends they couldn't lend them money because the board said they couldn't. Those bankers are good people. Yes, there are some snakes out there, just like there are some snaky life insurance people. There's snaky farmers and ranchers. There are snakes in every industry. And yes, there are some snaky bankers. And yes, there seems to be more in Montana and Nebraska than anywhere I've ever talked to people. Yes, there are those people out there. But all in all, bankers are good people. And you have to remember, the bank is a business and they're going to do whatever they need to do to make money. If that means holding you accountable, then that means holding you accountable. But when we go to lend money from the bank, when we go to borrow money, not lend from them, that's terrible grammar. When we go to borrow money from the bank, we just signed up to do business with the bank and we essentially are employees of the bank. They get to call that note. They've given up control. Contrary to what some people may tell me, you give me a situation where you borrow money from the bank and you have control. They can call that note whenever they want. Ideally, we don't want this, right? Ideally, we want to be in control as much as we can. Now, this doesn't mean that this is an all or nothing approach. So many people also say, well, Mary Jo, I need $1 million or this isn't going to work. Well, for Pete's sakes, did you start with 10,000 acres? Did you start with 5,000 acres? Did you start with 500 head of cattle? No, we worked our way into it. You may not see it through your lifetime that you get away from the bank, but you will in generations to come. So here's the deal. I don't hate bankers. You know what I don't like? The banking system. I don't like the fact that we have fractional reserve banking, that we can turn money 10 times, that we have a Federal Reserve that controls our monetary system and there's nothing federal about it. It is a private-owned entity that controls our dollars, that controls our economy. We have central banks across the world that are controlling monetary systems. If you look at I think it was one of the Rockefellers said, their goal is to control the money supply in the world. I don't like that. Right now in the ranching industry, people are upset because the packers are all in bed together. And there's no competition with packers, right? They have ultimate control. So do your banks. If you are going to borrow money from a bank, you are doing business with the bank, not the banker. The banker is collecting a check. Also, if these bankers and boards of banks would understand that I am telling their client that they need to get their books together, they need to figure out their finances, they need to pay attention to their numbers, did I not just hand you a wonderful client that actually keeps their books, that pays attention to their numbers? The bankers paid attention and listened to what I had to say instead of jumping to conclusions. If farmers and ranchers listened to what I have to say instead of jumping to conclusions, this wouldn't even be a podcast topic. But we judge a book by its cover. Aren't we always told never judge a book by its cover? You don't know what's inside. I had some banker dude commenting on my Facebook ad. And I find it very funny. I invited him to listen to the podcast twice. He obviously chose not to because he kept spewing stuff that I totally agreed with, and he made it sound like I was an idiot not agreeing. Well, my new friend, I totally agree. But we cannot be friends if you are not going to educate yourself. And I don't really, frankly, care what credentials are. I don't care how many letters you have beside your name. I don't care how long you've been in business. If you have the arrival syndrome and you've not actually learned anything, then maybe we should just zip it. Just. But we can't do that in today's society. We must break out the keyboard warriors, which is what last week's podcast is all about, right? So get over the notion that I don't love bankers and I don't love the banking system, but the bank's there. It's going to be there. It's always going to be there. We just don't always need to use it. There are times where we want to use it. There are times where we want to leverage our money. Heck, there are times when I tell people to go to the bank, which is a lot. So yes, Mr. Banker, you may thank me. You may thank me. You may actually want me to speak at that conference because I will most likely say, you know what? The bank's interest is 2%. You go there, you get a loan from them there. And then you leave your money liquid in the policy so we can leverage it and buy things that, guess what? The bank won't lend us money for. Because the bank doesn't always want to lend us money, which is why we most of the time don't like them. And frankly, if you don't want to lend me money for something, Mr. Banker, you shouldn't even care that I have a life insurance policy to go buy that, because now you're not on the hook for lending me money for it. I'm not even mad at you. It could have possibly saved our relationship. Gosh, there are so many positives to this life insurance policy. And we can still have the banks. Do I want them? Nope. Hopefully someday they go away. But I'm talking like after I die. So in the meantime, nobody needs to be worried about me. Nobody needs to think that I hate their family member because he or she is a banker. Because I don't. I have no problem with your family member being a banker. I probably use that bank, right? Because I myself use banks. Don't get the bank confused with the banker, because the banking system is seriously corrupt. Seriously corrupt. But I'm not here to hate on anybody. I'm actually here making farmers and ranchers better clients, making business owners better clients for the bank. So don't be scared of me. Just trying to help our farmers and ranchers. And by somebody eliminating me from speaking and somebody being scared of me, why? Oh, here's a funny story. Here's a funny story that I just may end this with. So, I have a client that his wife read the book and he did not read the book. So he goes to the banker and the banker says, you know, that is way too much money in life insurance. You can buy term. That is going to be way better for you to buy term. And the wife called and said, we got to come in and visit because he's really worried about what the banker said, that this is not good insurance and that we should be buying term instead. All right, come on in. So before they came in, I went to fda.gov or fed.gov. I think it's fed.gov. And you can just Google it or go to YouTube, how to find how much bank-owned life insurance banks have. So I went to, I think it's fed.gov, found this bank and how much bank-owned life insurance this bank has. Banks do not own term insurance, my friends. Banks own whole life insurance. So I looked it up, I printed it out, I slid it across the table when he got to my office and said, now you can take this back to your lender and ask him why, if whole life is so bad, why does his bank have millions of dollars of whole life insurance? Now, this is a small bank, small local bank. Why are you so concerned about bank-owned life insurance when your own bank has some? Whole life, bank-owned life insurance. That opened my client's eyes. Holy cow, if whole life is so bad, why do banks have it? If whole life is so bad, why does a bank want to use it as collateral to a loan? It's not bad. Best thing they can put on their books. So when your banker says, oh, you don't need that, that's terrible. The banker is scared they're going to lose some business. And rightfully so, they should. There should be a little bit of competition for them to say, you know what, I don't need you. Let's reverse those roles, farmers and ranchers, and let's put you back in control so you can walk into the bank and say, this is what I want, and I'm good for it. Then you may have a little bit of control. In most circumstances, you are not going to have control when you do business with the bank. They can call that note whenever they want. Okay, so You know that banker? You know somebody terrified of me because they think they're going to lose a little bit of business? Share this with them. I would love to have that conversation. I would beat up on an accountant before I would beat up on a banker. 2 different scenarios. The accountant I expect more of. The banker is only doing what they're allowed to do by the board of the bank. So with that, if you guys have not gotten the books, Farming Without the Bank, Life Without the Bank, or Becoming Your Own Banker, you can do that now by going to farmingwithoutthebank.com. You can grab it there. You can email me at maryjo@withoutthebank and email me any topics that I have not covered. I got one this morning, which was fantastic. I love to hear from you guys. And so if there is a topic that I have not yet covered, please email me, let me know, and I would be happy to cover it. If not, I will respond either way. It ultimately doesn't matter. But that's all I have for today. So until next time, you have a absolutely fantastic Friday weekend, and I'll see you next week.